Okay, welcome everyone to my virtual tour of Uganda. It's Marc Cronje here from Nature Travel Birding. And I'm coming to you from sunny South Africa, small town called Nelspruit, literally on the border or the southern border of the Kruger National Park. And with this COVID-19 or this coronavirus, we're all in the same boat and being grounded, no travel going on at the moment. So we thought of bringing you a few virtual tours of countries I like, and that are some more popular countries and places we go. So we'll start with Uganda, probably one of the best places to go birding in Africa. It's a very, very diverse country, some of the best rainforest or forest birding you can have, mountain birding up in Buindi National Park. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, famous for the gorillas. We've got the Mabamba Swamp, where we get the Shoebull, Murchison Falls National Park, Queen Elizabeth National Park, all famous for the wildlife. Queen Elizabeth, the Shasha sector, is known for the tree climbing line. So Uganda is one of those destinations. It's a popular tour, and we just have an absolute amazing time on the tour. Quite a high species list comes out of it, both birding and mammals. So I'm going to take you through the tour as if we were actually on the tour, the places we go, some pictures, videos from the countries, and yeah, I hope you enjoy it. And we'll start now. So there you can see, of course, famous Shoebull. Just a map of Uganda where it all fits in. So you can see landlocked. It's bordered by Sudan in the north. And then to the west, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In the south, by the small country of Rwanda and Tanzania. And then in the east, by Kenya. So our tour starts on the shores of Lake Victoria. We fly into the small town of Entebbe. Not the capital. The capital, of course, is Kampala. We'll spend the first night in Entebbe, just get used to some of the more common birds found in East Africa and Uganda. So we visit the botanical gardens in Entebbe. And the next day we head out nice and early. We head towards Kampala and we visit the Mabamba Swamp. It's probably the best place to see the Shoebull. And then from there we make our way through Kampala, heading north. We stop and we visit Kibale National Park, famous for the Royal Mile. Fantastic, fantastic forest birding there. And then from there, we head right up to the northern part of the country, almost on the border with Sudan, at Lake Albert, where we spend time in Murchison Falls National Park. We do go and visit the majestic falls as well, which I'll be touching on a little bit later. From Murchison Falls, we start coming a little bit down south. We visit Semiliki, and then from Semiliki we head to Queen Elizabeth National Park. It's Uganda's most famous national park. And then from Queen we start heading all the way down south to Buindi, Uganda's UNESCO World Heritage Site, famous for the mountain gorillas. And then from Buindi we head down to Lake Mburo. Lake Mburo is really interesting from a birding point of view because it's a real mix of we get more our acacia-associated species in open savanna, more what we get in Kenya, Tanzania. So just adds a couple of nice birds onto our birding list. And it's an open savanna, so some really good mammals, and we spend time on a boat there. So it's just a really nice way for us to end the trip, and then we make the drive back to, well, first Kampala and then Entebbe, and then either fly out late that evening or early the next day. So we'll start the tour now. So just one of the more common birds we see normally on arriving in Uganda and leaving the airport, these guys start popping up everywhere. It's a plantain eater. This is your eastern plantain eater. Anyone traveled in parts of West Africa, we have a very similar looking bird known as the western plantain eater. We then, one of the more striking, colorful birds of our tour, the Ross's turaka. I mean, it's just, are we lucky in Africa? Our turakas are these big, brightly colored birds. Some of them more difficult to find. Others, quite often, we do get them on their call. But this guy is one of we see it every day on the tour. So we get blessed and you just can't have enough of it. I've included a little video clip of the turaka here. There we go. I'm just going to play so we can hear, because I mean this bird is really, really vocal, and often we get our turakas or find the turakas on them being vocal. So I'm just going to play the call for you to hear. Okay, and then also one of the more common birds that we pick up, this photo I actually took in the botanical gardens in Entebbe on the shores of Lake Victoria. It's a white-throated bee-eater. For those of you joining me from South Africa, you'll know this is an extremely rare bird that pitches up occasionally here, and people try and twitch it, where in the rest of Africa, it's actually quite a common bird that we come across. As with all the bee-eaters, just these colorful birds, and it's right up there on people's lists for birds to see. Also a stunning bird, quite common across central and parts of West Africa. It's a violet's black weaver. And just look at that absolutely stunning eye like that with a black in the middle. It's just one of those stunning birds. Again, this was photographed in our walk in the botanical gardens on the first day, and they pose literally on the shores of Lake Victoria, and sometimes we have them in their hundreds. So it's just a nice bird. I mean, some of the other birds we get in the garden, great blue turaco, grey parrots. I mean, African grey parrots, or now known as a grey parrot. A lot of people have only seen these birds in cages, and to have them flying overhead late afternoon in botanical gardens is absolutely incredible. They're also one of our favorites, our inter-African migrants. It's a woodland kingfisher. Look at those blue striking colors. And this bird is also one of those birds that my South African friends or followers will know. We get them down here in South Africa in our summer, and then they migrate back up into Central Africa. And it's a bird we see fairly regularly on the tour. Not on the whole tour, it's not a forest species. So we see it in the botanical gardens, and then we do pick them up later on the tour when we visit Lake Mbudo. Also a very, very, very distinct call, which I'm going to play for you. Sorry, just jump slide there. Sorry, guys. Here's the call of the woodlands kingfisher. The other birds we see in the botanical gardens, we get orange weaver, blue spotted wood dove. If we're lucky, for most of the time we'll get the great treat hornbill. It's one of our first big hornbills that we see on the tour. And then of course, the botanical gardens borders Lake Victoria. So we see a lot of water birds, sandpipers, storks, herons. So it just makes for a really nice outing and a really good start to the tour. In our first dinner together, when we familiarize ourselves with the tour, where we're going, is spent on the shores of Lake Victoria, and while having a welcome drink, this is the kind of sunset we get to witness and enjoy. So one of the perks of doing this job is the incredible sunrises and sunsets we get to enjoy. So we're moving on now to the next day. There's the famous Mbamba Swamp, home of the shoeball stork. Just to give you an idea of the habitat that we encounter while on the trip to see the shoeball. So we use local guides on this trip. So the guides have realized the importance of the shoeball stork, and we try to support the local guides where we can. I mean, these are the guys protecting these birds. They generate a living from showing people the storks. And they mainly are fishermen, so spend a lot of time in this swamp or in this wetland. So they kind of know where the shoeballs are going to be. And we go out in a little dugout wooden canoe with them on a little motorboat, and we go look for the shoeball stork. Sometimes we're lucky, we get them almost instantly, and sometimes it does take a bit of searching to find the birds. With shoeball being one of the main targets of the trip, it's always interesting when we start this and we're hoping to see the bird, and we always worry, the bird not gonna show up. But all of our tours, we've got 100% success rate of seeing the shoeball stork, and most of the time we get lucky in Murchison Falls National Park to get the shoeball there as well. But this is definitely the best place to see the bird. Some of the other birds that we'll see on the trip while looking for them, there's blue swallows. They'll fly in front of the boat while we're looking for the shoeball. We get swamp flycatcher, blue-breasted bee-eater, Papyrus gonolek. So you can hear there's some really good stuff that we see while looking for the shoeball. And there you have it. There's the target. It's always a high five, almost fall out of the boat when this bird decides to pop up and we see him lifting that massive beak out of the reeds like that. I mean, these birds are known for catching lungfish. That's why they've got this really unique beak that they use to feed on. On my last tour to Uganda, we were extremely lucky. We actually had a shoeball stork fly over the boat, and you get to really see the size of this bird when it comes over. And yeah, when you're coming across the swamp and you see this bird there like that, it's just, yeah, really takes your breath away. And I've seen them quite a few times, and every time it's always quite magical. I'm going to go on to our next slide now. There's your blue-breasted bee-eater, also seen on the swamp, an absolutely stunning bird, like all your bee-eaters. There's your bare-faced go-away bird, also quite a unique call. I'm just going to play the call so you can get a ear for this. So yeah, those have been on tour with me in South Africa and other parts of Africa will know that the go-away birds are quite a big family. I mean, down here we have our grey go-away bird. Similar call, you know, distinct call like that. And then this is the one we get in Uganda and other parts of East Africa. Quite common on our tours to Kenya, Tanzania, etc. Oh, the national bird of Uganda, the grey-crowned crane. Uganda is one of those countries, like most of our countries in Africa, as we travel from one destination to the next, we're still birding en route and trying to do as much birding as we can. And I mean, this photo I took on one of my Uganda trips and just moving between locations, we found these cranes just feeding there out in the open in someone's plowed fields. And it's just, yeah, it's an absolute stunning bird. Later in the tour, you'll see, I'll give you some audio on this bird of quite a big group that we saw in Murchison Falls National Park. Okay, so we moved on now from the swamp and we've headed slightly north in the direction of Murchison Falls National Park. And this is Kibali, and this is a photo looking down the Royal Mile. Anyone that's birded in Uganda will know of this Royal Mile we talk about. I've never measured it. I don't know if it's exactly a mile, but it's one of those famous birding locations in Africa and in Uganda. Exceptionally great birding. Always a chance for chimpanzees. On a few trips we haven't seen them, but I've heard the chimpanzees from the forest while birding, and we really target some of our forest species. This Padonga forest is your largest natural forest left in East Africa. So you can imagine being a primary forest that's going to attract some really, really good birds. One of the birds we target is the Nahans Franklin, a real sulker and a real tough bird. We have to really work for them. We have to walk quietly, listen for them, and often when we hear them, then we follow and we walk into the forest to try and connect with them. Very, very, very difficult bird to photograph, but it is. We do get them on most of our tours to this area. So I've got a few photos of some of the birds from the area. There we go. So these hornbills, this is your white-thighed hornbill. We were lucky. I mean, while my last tour, we had just gotten out the car, met our local guide, and we're about to walk into the forest, and a flock of these birds came in and landed, and this beaut just sat there. I mean, look at that. Our hornbills are especially our African forest hornbills, such big birds, colorful birds, vocal birds. So it's always a good start when you're entering a forest and this guy pitches up like this. Another target, and we have a variety of different barbets across the African continent. This is your yellow-billed barbet, and you can see just sometimes a bit difficult. They won't always come out, but this guy sat there quite nicely for us to get some good looks on him. Another one of our barbets that we target, this is your hairy-breasted barbet. Can also be a real sulker. Our local guides, we spend a good amount of time with the local guides, prepping them for some of the birds that we're looking for, and then of course we also spend time. So this bird, often we'll hear the bird calling, and then try and locate the bird and call, and sometimes we manage to call the bird in. With enough searching, we just get good views on the bird like this. Also a target for the area, African dwarf kingfisher, one of the smallest kingfisher in Africa. Not the best photo, the light in the forest sometimes can be a little bit tough, but also one of those targets and such a colorful, the kingfishers like your bee eaters. Beautiful birds to get our eyes or your binoculars on. Another kingfisher, your blue-breasted kingfisher. You can see it's a little bit like the woodland kingfisher, but this is a forest species. So this I photographed on one of my trips, also in the Royal Mile. There's one of our dactyl taracas. So this is your great blue taraka, one of our main targets when we're in our, this bird lives in mainly primary forest, and you can see just big bird, beautiful yellow bill like that. It's just when you, even if you've seen this bird 100 times, every time you see it, just always very exciting. And then, I mean, while we're spending time in this forest, you heard me mention that we sometimes see the chow, and be it possible of chimps. We hear the chimps. We also have a couple of other monkey species that live in the forest when we're in Uganda. There's a red-tailed monkey, beautiful white nose like that. In the same forest, we often come across the colobus. Some people know them as black and white colobus, or your Angolan colobus. Ah, there they are. You see them with their beautiful long black tails, white on the end. Also quite vocal primates. So often we will be walking in the forest and you'll hear the primates calling before you see them. Or as you're walking through, you can see the movement up in the canopy. And then if you're quiet, you sometimes get onto them where we get some really good views of them like this. Just to give an idea of how special these forests are. There's a photo I took of one of my clients, just taking it all in, just sitting down on the forest floor, listening to the birds, photographing the birds, the ants crossing the path. You can just see there's something about an African forest. If you sit still, there's a lot to hear and there's a lot really to take in. And I mean, our tours are we try and be flexible and give everyone. And yeah, Jackie, her name's Jackie. She just wanted to take it all in. Just let her take it all in. And it's just amazing being in these tracks of proper wild forest still. But yeah, it's really amazing when we get to spend time in these forests. The other birds that we do pick up when we are looking in Badonga, I mean, we are looking for chestnut-capped flycatcher, blue-throated roller, Ituribatus. These are some of the targets that we will be focusing on when we spend time walking up and down this mile. I mean, there is chance in some of the other forests for these, in our other parts of tour for these birds as well, but there are some of the targets. And then one of the highlights I've had of spending time in this forest on my last tour is we had a dusky long-tailed cuckoo, which we must have flushed him out, and he just sat there and we managed to get views. It's not a very easy bird to see on this tour. I mean, one of the advantages of doing these tours is you just never know what might come up. So from Badonga, we leave Badonga and we head up north to Murchison Falls National Park. And here you can see the falls itself, or the mightiness of the falls. This is the River Nile, so it's where the River Nile shows its real power and its beauty. And it runs through this narrow gorge or cleft that's part of the Rift Valley escarpment. And you can see it just thunders down like that. You can see the walkway there, some kids, local kids enjoying the falls, and it is quite spectacular to see. Of course, any birder, when we go to a place, what birds can you see in the area? There are practicals, so we do pick up the rock practicals in the area. Red-winged grey warbler is often seen in the area, and then white-headed sawwing will fly over the top of the fall. So you can see my mouse where the kids are standing. We often where those kids are standing over there, and we look over there, and that's often where we'll get the sawwing as well. There's some great birding in Murchison Falls. I mean, you can see here, jumping the gun here. Well, we'll talk about him, your pals fishing out. We do know of a couple of places along the river where we can pick up on this bird, and sometimes even on a boat trip, we get this bird. It's always one of those iconic birds in Africa, and we, from time to time, get them on our Uganda trips and some of our other trips, our trip in Namibia, the Caprivi strip, and into Botswana. This is all bird we get all the time. It's just one of those birds in Africa. When you see them, it's just always seem to take your breath away. Of course, not by the falls, but below the falls, we do spend time on the boat and doing a boat trip, trying to target some of the water birds, and we come across Africa's most dangerous mammal, our hippopotamus. And we, obviously being careful, we do manage to get quite close and manage to get quite good photos of these guys. Sometimes we get them yawning. They've got youngsters, we have to be a bit more careful, but we do come across these guys as well. And we also get great scenes over Lake Albert and into the mountains of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So it's just a lovely boat trip that we do on the river. I mean, we'll target some of your water birds. Got a photo coming up now, I think, of saddle-billed stork We get blue-headed kugel, giant kingfisher. You again your sandpipers if they're in, your heron, your egret. There you can see. I mean, that's so one of those storks everyone wants to see. I mean, we also get Goliath heron, Africa's largest heron, and then this guy, your saddlebow stork. This was taken on one of my previous tours to Uganda. We managed, the boat drivers are really good and they'll turn off the engines, glide, and we often get quite close to the birds and take some really nice photos. Also a fantastic bird to see, your western banded snake eagle. This bird who just managed, didn't fly away, just sat there, stared at us, gave us that evil eye. And it's just one of those targets that we lucky enough to pick up on this trip. Not so common, more south, more common in Central and Western Africa again. There's another one of our lapwings. This is your long-toed lapwing. It's a bird we pick up in Uganda fairly easily, and then our trips to Namibia, the Caprivi strip again, it's a bird we also target and also pick up. Just a fantastic bird, it had white on the front like that. Just a good looking bird, makes really, really nice photos. There you can see another bee eater. The bee eaters always attract people, especially our photographers, is your red-throated bee eater. And also one of those stunning birds. They're quite common on the boat trip, and we can often glide and they just sit there and pose nicely for it. I was telling you here, Uganda's national bird again on the open plains of Murchison Falls National Park. You can see you've got a Ugandan cob there, a young one, and just out in the plains like that, and we could photograph them from a distance. And it's just a nice bird to connect with. Here's quite vocal birds as well. Here's a bit of their calls. Of course, you heard me say Queen Elizabeth, sorry, not Queen Elizabeth, sorry, Murchison Falls National Park is quite good for its wildlife. So you can just see some of the wildlife we come across when we hop off our boat and we drive around looking for some of your savanna birds. We come across monkeys, antelope, crocodiles, hippos, and if you're lucky, I mean, the park does have leopard and lion in it as well. So there, I'm just going to explain what we've got there. On the left, we've got Jackson's hartebeest. Then we've got a patus monkey. It's a typical savanna monkey. So you won't find these monkeys in the forest. You find them in open savannas like that. They're in the same family, or they're cousins of our blue monkeys or vervet monkeys we get down here in South Africa. The Ugandan cob, and if you look there, you can see there's actually a youngster that's busy drinking there. And then a waterbuck, but that's not our normal waterbuck. This is the Tafasa waterbuck that we find in East Africa. And then these are quite special. So of course, it's a giraffe, but this is your Rothschild giraffe. And this is one of our most endangered species of giraffe we have in Africa. And Murchison Falls National Park is one of the strongholds for them. There's actually an introduction program going on in the park where people are where they're introducing these giraffe back into the southern parts of the park. And it's become the stronghold, and there's a breeding program going on. So we come across, there's a lovely male. You can see the wounds there on the neck from the fighting, and they're very, very big ossicles. There's a Denham's bustard. We came across this on one of our previous tours in the open grasslands, looking for some of our grasslands, pipits and larks, testiculars. We came across this beautiful Denham's bustard. Another bee eater. They just seem to always steal the show. There's our northern carmine bee eater. So those that have been on tour with me to Botswana, and we go and visit the bee eater colony in Botswana. Those are southern carmine bee eaters. This is a different species. They've got an all blue head, and they're quite common in Murchison Falls National Park. We have them flying over the Nile River, and then often we have them, if we're lucky, we can get them perched, posing like this. One of the targets for the open savannas is the Ruppel's griffon vulture. You can see that white bill like that. Sorry for the noise in the background. I am on a horse farm, so you can just hear the tractor coming past. Sorry about that. We'll just let him go past. So that's your Ruppel's griffon vulture. You can see that white bill like that. Nice full crop. So these guys had actually been down on a carcass, feeding on a carcass, and this individual flew up and posed lovely in the tree like that. And then always a special bird to come across. This is your Abyssinian or your northern ground hornbill. Very similar to the ground hornbill we get in southern Africa or south of the equator with all red face and no casque. You can see this bird's got that big casque like that and the blue around the eye. Always a target. If it's their first trip to East Africa, often people have seen southern ground hornbill and are looking for these guys. It's quite unusual to see one in a tree like this. And this bird had flown up into a tree and I just managed to get a shot like this. As the name says, ground hornbill. They often move around on the ground, feeding on snakes, geckos, lizards, even other birds. Those species are critically endangered. So it's really one of those birds we target and we need to try and get when we in Murchison Falls National Park. Okay, we're going to be moving on now. Now we're leaving. Just a group photo from my last tour. Jackie and Norman, two guests that have traveled me numerous times in Africa, India. And it's just our local guide, Stephen. We just make a stop. And of course, whenever we cross the Tropic of Capricorn or we across the equator, we need to do that mandatory stop and just take those photos. But there, everybody's smiling. So we must have just seen a really, really good bird. Okay, just a picture there, our typical forest scene. Just a beautiful forest we come across. And this forest now is Kibale National Park or Kibale Forest. So most of the time when we say Kibale, people think, oh, it's the primate capital of Africa because of the chimpanzees and the good number of species of primates we find in the forest. It is where we do our chimpanzee tracking on the tour, if people are interested. And quite often when we're spending time in the forest, we hear the chimpanzees, and even sometimes we come across them. Just the biodiversity in this forest is absolutely incredible. There's over 350 species of trees have been recorded in this park, and it's some of them are over 200 years old. You come to these massive, massive big fig trees with their big buttresses, and you just look up at them, and as far as you can see, there's the tree growing up. Those big buttresses is what the chimps go up and they kick their feet against to the form of communication. They'll actually beat against or drum against the buttresses in the forests. 70 species of mammals. Of course, the chimps being what probably makes the forest famous. And then we do our birding tours here and spend a bit of time birding here. So of course, it attracts a good amount of birds. Over 370 species of birds have been recorded in Kibale National Forest. There's of course one bird that makes this forest almost, or one bird we really, really want to get out of our trip to this forest, and it's this beauty, your green-breasted pitta. Now, when we say the word pitta, most people know pitta. We think of our Angolan or African pitta, we get the green-breasted pitta. They're tough birds. They're real sulkers. We have to go, we coincide our birding tours in Uganda when they're breeding, so when they're calling. And then we use a local guide that generally has an idea where they've been. But to take this photo, it's not the best photo of the species. It took about 2 hours of walking in the forest before we came across this bird. And then it was crawling on our hands and knees, getting stuck in the mud, tripping, falling. But eventually, we all managed to get some incredible views on this target. And we touch wood. On all of our tours to Uganda, we never dip on this bird. We spend some time looking for it, but yeah, we spent time really looking for this bird. Our last trip to Uganda last year, we actually came across this bird, and then while watching the bird, we could hear the chimpanzees calling. And I had said to the local guide, "No, those chimps are close. Is there any chance we can try and see if we could find them?" I mean, knowing that I had chimpanzee tracking the next day, then coming in that afternoon, I just thought we'd give it a go. And lo and behold, I mean, we finished looking at this green-breasted pitta, went back onto a forest track, walked down the forest track, and just walked into a whole group of chimpanzees, about 20 chimpanzees, just there on the forest floor, some in the tree, babies, youngsters, all playing. So it's one of the amazing things about birding in Uganda. You could really bump into anything. And quite often we bump into the chimps. And even sometimes when we're in Burundi, we just bump into the gorillas and not even gorilla tracking. There's always something to look at in Uganda. There you can see all thumbs up pointing at the green-breasted pitta in the book. This is obviously back at our lodge for lunch after a very successful trip in finding this absolutely stunning bird. Back to our large hornbills. There you can see this is your black and white cast hornbill. You can see a big cast over there, and this is one of those birds we target when we're spending time in Kibale, and also lucky to get this photo of this bird nice out in the open just before entering the entering into the forest. Oh, back to our bee eaters. This is your cinnamon-breasted bee eater. Took this at Similiki. And yeah, the bee eaters, our bee eater diversity in Africa is just incredible. And as we travel through different African destinations, bee eaters, you can really rack them up and collect different bee eaters. Always a stunning bird to come across. This is your black and white shrike flycatcher. Quite common on the outskirts of the forest. So this is also taken in just on the outskirts of Kibale, and we do also get them in Bwindi National Park. There we go, one of our sunbirds. This is your blue-throated brown sunbird. Actually had a nest in Similiki. So you can see there that bird had been collecting nesting material, and we actually watched the bird and saw where he came. You can see that a nest was being built like that. So a bird that's always good to try and get eyes on. We often will be listening for the bird when we're in our forest. This is your brown-throated wattle eye. I'm always absolutely amazed by those red wattles that they have on their eyes like that. I'm going to play you their call. They've got a very, very distinct call. And often we hear the call and we can find the bird. Then some more primates from Kibale. This is it's now become endemic to Uganda. This is your Ugandan red colobus monkey with their red tufts on the top of their head like that. And then yeah, you heard me saying that Kibale is known for their chimpanzees. So just a few shots of the chimpanzees. This is a typical chimp pose. Chimps seem to, when they're feeding on figs, you can see the big figs there. They try and stuff as much as they can in their mouth. You can see a real mouth full of figs, and then they'll be quite comical. They'll often try and spit pieces down at you when you're watching them from the forest floor. I put this photo in. Yeah, this is a young chimp. Now, chimps, you know, they are closest living relatives. They share 98.8% of our DNA. So they can be quite human-like. And when we watch them, we often watch them doing things that really give us a good chuckle. And this young chimp found it absolutely amazing to be above us in the forest, and he thought it would be amazing to try and pee on us. He would sit there on that branch, open his legs, and try and pee on us from the top. And every time we'd move, you could see the chimp was almost laughing at how he found this hysterical, and we'd move into place and try again. So we always suggest in our trips to Uganda to bring a raincoat. It might not always be for the rain, it might be for other things. Okay, we're moving on now from Kibale. Well, we're still based in just outside Kibale National Park. But our next day, we actually do a trip down to Similiki National Park. I showed you a few photos already from the park previously, but this park is, it's not too far from Kibale, but we do an extension, or we do a drive down for the day to this park. So we leave quite nice early in the morning. We take a packed breakfast and lunch, and we head to this park. And you can see, apart from the scenery, it's just a stunning piece of African forest, but it's a unique piece of forest. It's a forest tract that's an extension of some of the West African forests. So from Equatorial Guinea to Congo. And because of that, it's got what we call your Guinea-Congo species come down into the small part of Uganda. So we get a chance to try and target a couple of bird species that we'd only normally find in West Africa, typically in a trip up to like Ghana, for example. So it gives us a chance to really target some of those what they call those those Guinea biome species. You can see just in this photo, you can see that's just the scenery. You can actually see the steam coming off there. What's quite unique of Similiki is there's actually a series of these almost like hot pools or coming out from underneath the ground. And we walk on this boardwalk, obviously while looking for birds, but we also just get to take in, again, spending time in these pieces of primary forest, just absolutely mind-blowing and really just so enjoyable. This is one of the special birds that we try and get in the forest. This is your white-crested hornbill. It's not an easy bird to target or to try and get, but Similiki in Uganda is one of it's the only place in Uganda you can see this bird. And on almost all of our tours, sometimes after a lot of searching, we come across these birds. The local guides, you could see on the previous photo, us walking there, and you can see the local guide there in front of us. Often the local guides have an idea where they spend time. So they become a great use to us when we're trying to target some of these special birds. Yeah, there he is. Rufous-sided broadbill. It's probably, in my opinion, in Uganda, the best place to see this bird. People who have seen the bird displaying before will know how unique the broadbills, all the broadbills do it, how they display. They'll sit on a branch like that, fly up, and then do their circle and land back. And I've just added in here, you can actually hear the vocalizations from the bird while they're displaying. There's a really unique call. Such a cool call. It's an amazing, if you, when you're with people in the forest and you know they're looking for broadbill and you hear that like that, you know, we got to go and try and get in there and see if we can get that bird out. Sorry, it's not a very, very good picture. These dwarf hornbills are not easy to photograph. This is a black dwarf hornbill, also a major target and one of the reasons why we go to Similiki. Much more common in West Africa, but in Uganda, it's a special bird to see on our trips to Uganda. Also, and absolutely, I mean, not a good photo at all, but this is a Congo serpent eagle. I've spent a good amount of trips in Africa before I actually managed to see this bird. On one of my previous tours to Uganda, managed to get great views of the bird actually flying in, and then we managed to locate the bird and get views of the bird. And this photo was actually taken through the scope, so that's hence why it's not such a good photo. But any photo of the Congo serpent eagle, I'll take. We also target some of the smaller birds. This was taken just on the outskirts of the forest of Similiki. Orange-cheeked waxbill. It's a bird, when you look at some of the older books of Uganda, it's not even in the bird book. It was rediscovered in that area, and now the guys know about it. And often while we're walking on the outskirts looking for things like bronze-nape pigeon, aphid pigeon, we come across these orange-cheeked waxbills. I'm going to move across to our next slide. Also, one of the targets for Similiki, it's a nicotor, and this is a yellow-throated nicotor. If you look there on the throat, you can see a little bit of the yellow coming through and a little bit of yellow on the eye. The other nicotor we do get in the area is sometimes we do get eastern nicotor coming through as well, but this is one of the targets we try and get in the area. Okay, this is your rufous flycatcher thrush, or also known as a Fraser's rufous thrush. Also one of the targets we try and get when we spend time in Similiki. Not very colorful like some of the other birds, but one of those birds that's very range restricted and only found in this little piece of forest. And of course, like you've heard me say, we don't just only focus on birds, we also, the forest have got high amounts of biodiversity. I've been before in Similiki, I don't have photos because they gave us a fright where we come across elephants. We walk into Similiki, there are still also forest buffalo. We're walking and we heard the elephants, and next thing before you look, just in front of you in the forest park, it's the elephant. So we get lucky. These are Ugandan great-cheeked mangabeys. And yeah, like with all birding tours, we do spend quite a bit of time walking in the forest. Pretty easy walking, but the forest can be hot and humid. Anytime we have to stop and enjoy a break here, we're enjoying lunch. It's well enjoyed by everyone. You can see us enjoying our juice, having a meal. Just look at those gumboots. You can quite clearly see I was the one that got the raw end of the deal there. And got the nice bright blue gumboots. But I guess they were probably the only pair that fits. You need them. The forests are often quite wet and muddy underfoot, and gumboots is really the only thing you can use. Okay, so we're leaving the forest patches now for a while, and we're going to be heading slightly down south, and we're heading to the famous Queen Elizabeth National Park. And we spent time in Queen Elizabeth National Park in the savanna areas, focusing on mammals, some of the savanna birds again, and we also spent time on the Kazinga Channel. We do a boat trip on the Kazinga Channel. The Kazinga Channel connects Lake George and Lake Edward, and is really great for water birds, for crocs, hippos. Often we get the buffalo, Cape buffalo, or African savanna buffalo, elephants coming down to drink on a late afternoon boat cruise. And it's as we move through the park is actually set on the backdrop of the Rwenzori Mountains. So just it's a spectacular park, great for scenery. Just one of the telling you how Uganda, it's not just birds and wildlife, but the scenery is absolutely spectacular in this country. Why they call it the Pearl of Africa. Queen Elizabeth is also famous for their tree climbing lions. So you can see this is a photo I took on one of my tours in Uganda. Funny photo with him, with this young male sticking his tongue out at us. And these tree climbing lions, these lions actually go up into trees and lie in the trees like leopards would do. And it's quite a unique thing. I mean, it doesn't only happen in Queen Elizabeth National Park, but it's unique to Queen Elizabeth National Park. So in the Ishasha sector, you see these lions. And people say they get up there, it's cooler up there, and they also get up there to get away from the tsetse fly. And often on our trips here, we do get lucky and we come across these lions up in the trees like this. Back to the birding. So this is a white-browed cuckoo, which would have been seen on the boat trip. So we go out in a little private boat and we're able to get quite nice and close to the birds that are on the shoreline and can get good photos. This bird had been wet, must have been bathing, and you could see him ruffling up the feathers like that, drying. This bird we see in Southern Africa as well, so it is quite a widely distributed cuckoo. Our Gordon Blue, our red-cheeked Gordon Blue. Some people know them as waxbills, or down here in the south we get the blue waxbill. One of those birds that's just stunning little birds. I mean, they're common and not rare, but just stunning little birds to look at. Our great white pelicans. It's we get to see quite nice big flocks of these birds when we're on the Kazinga Channel, along with many other water birds. Loads of egrets, great egret, intermediate or yellow-billed egret, little egret, Goliath heron, black heron if we're lucky, kingfishers, pied kingfisher, malachi, giant. So the boat trip is just one of those, it's a nice way to unwind after we've spent the day through the park. Sit on the boat, take it all in, enjoy the sunset, and really just enjoy the bird life on the channel. Oh, things like Senegal lapwing. It's also one of the targets when we in Queen Elizabeth. And this photo was taken on one of my previous trips. This was on land, so probably just after we got off the boat, driving back to the lodge. Standing on the termite mound. Hamakuk, it's quite a common bird throughout Africa, but it's a unique bird. This bird is only found on the African continent and it's in its own family. So it's quite a unique bird. The word hamakop, it's Dutch, Afrikaans, and means hammerhead, the shape of that bill and the shape of their head. It's a unique bird. They build such a massive nest and they don't ever do any maintenance. They just keep adding more sticks and more grass into the nest, and the nest just gets bigger and bigger. They can get up to 2-3 meters in diameter, and eventually the nest gets so heavy it will break the branch. Fun and games in Uganda. There's no Uganda trip that doesn't go down without a bit of mud and about a bit of pushing and shoving. We try to do our trips in August to Uganda just before the heavy rains, but we had been in Queen and it rained overnight, and in the tropics when it rains properly. So this was quite a comical. I'll play the video now so you can just see the kind of expert driving that takes place by our local guide Stephen. But nerve-wracking at times, but they say Africa's not for sissies. And you can really see, I mean, before I took this video, we actually got stuck and had to push and eventually managed to pull ourselves out. But it all adds to the excitement and the adventure. But just take a look at this video to try and see the driving that takes place. Sorry about my hand there. Just look at that car in front of us, how that car is sliding. Bikes coming down, trucks stuck across the path. Always fun and games. So then that video I took on the way to, we were going from Queen Elizabeth National Park to Bwindi in Prenville National Park, or a World Heritage Site. So Bwindi is, okay, everyone knows this park for the gorillas. You know, it's famous for the mountain gorillas. It's their stronghold. but the birding is absolutely acceptable. Breathtaking. Takes, I mean, from when you arrive to when you leave, it's just new birds and they just come in thick and fast. It's got some of the best mountain or the best forest birding or montane forest birding in Africa. And it's also home to it's also home to the Albertine Rift endemics. So we spend a lot of time in this area targeting certain birds and trying to get those Albertine Rift endemics out of the way. So I mean, things like mountain buzzard, Mackinson's fiscal, sooty boo-boo, African hill babbler, and then Ranzeri batis. Those are some of the birds that we see normally on our first afternoon. I mean, we drive from Queen to Bundi, so we normally get there in the afternoon, manage to get some afternoon and some early evening birding in. And I mean, sometimes around our lodge where we stay in, we have Dorothy's bushshrike, for example. So it's a really, really incredible birding in Bundi. So we spend the night in just literally, we're actually in the fall. We're actually just on the outskirts of the World Heritage Site, and we stay in a eco lodge looking over the park, and then we spend our first morning going out and trying to target some of the birds. And here you can see bar-tailed trogon. So we do have the other trogon as well, which you pick up on the tour, the Narina trogon, but the bar-tailed trogon, you can see that barring on the tail, is one of the targets for the area. Also, one of the targets, back to our barbets, is the forest barbet, your grey-throated barbet. Really quite common around the entrance to Burundi and the Bahoma sector. As you can see, what's actually taken in the garden of the lodge, the juvenile snowy-headed robin chat. So one of the birds that we're trying to target when we spend time in this part of Burundi. And then you can see our northern double-collared sunbird. Our sunbirds, like your bee-eaters, are often full of great colors. So we try and get these guys, and really the regal sunbird also being one of the targets in the area. And just they're busy birds, so trying to photograph them is not easy. But once you get your binoculars on them, it's always birds that, when we're doing our trip list in the evenings, that are high up on, people really enjoyed them. Also warblers. If anyone that knows spends time with watching warblers, this is your red-faced woodland warbler, and real sulcus, always in the thick stuff. And this bird is actually an Albertine Rift endemic. So it's always good when we manage to see this bird. And on one of my previous trips, managed to get not the best photo, but managed to get a photo of the bird. The Ranzeri batis, another Albertine Rift endemic. Like all batises, they're really, really unique birds. They've got quite a unique three-tone call, so we often will hear them on the call. You just have to spend enough time watching, and sometimes slight use of callback and get the birds in. Like you've heard me say, there's always primates to look at, always wildlife to look at, and this is a Lohost's monkey in Burundi National Park. I mean, the monkey had been watching us, and I just managed to snap this photo, and I think it was a case of who's watching who taking place here. And this is just us, a typical scene when we're birding in Africa. Heads up, you work on those muscles in the neck when you're birding in the forest in Africa. And this is us birding a forest tract in Burundi with one of our local guides. And I can remember the sighting. We had heard those horse monkeys going crazy, like at alarm calling. And we had a crowned eagle flying over the forest. So we came running out the forest onto the road like this, and managed to get some great views of there's actually a pair of crowned eagle calling and flying above the forest like that. Crowned eagles are some of our bigger eagle, one of our biggest eagles we have on the continent, and they'll catch those little horse monkeys, those mangabees, the colobus. So it's always a nice eagle to see on our trip. Just to give you an idea of where we stay. So this is taken from the lodge, and you can see the rain clouds gathering up there for a storm, and it's just where you can see our lodge is literally based in the rainforest. So we have some really, really good birding that's just in and around our lodge. And we literally, our lodge is a 2-minute walk from the entrance to Burundi National Park. Our local guide who we use near Nicholas, he lives just down the road from the lodge, and from time to time he has the gorillas. They actually come into his homestead and actually will feed on the bananas that he's growing. So these gorillas, often I've been on previous tours where I haven't gone gorilla tracking, only part of the group has, and we go out birding with Nicholas in this area, and we literally, while we're out birding, we herding, we run into the gorillas, or the gorillas running into us. Okay, all the talk about the gorillas, there they are. So these are a few photos, and I've got a video from one of my previous trips. They were mountain gorillas. It's always special seeing these guys. I'll never forget the first time I had seen them. It's one of those, I think it was one of those wildlife trips or one of those wildlife sightings expeditions that any wildlife enthusiast needs to do it. And Uganda is the safest and the best place to go and see the gorillas. I mean, there's a couple of different species of gorilla, of course. I mean, the mountain gorilla is the species we go and target in Uganda. And the walk can be anything. I mean, we actually go out tracking, looking for them. And the walk can be anything from 20 minutes, 40 minutes, up to 3 hours to try and find these guys. So it just depends where the gorillas are and how long you have to walk to see them. But even after a 4-hour walk, when you come across a gorilla like this, I mean, this photo was taken, the gorilla was about 5-6 meters in front of me, or you see a big silverback walking by. It's always impressive. The mountain gorillas we target them in Uganda and Rwanda. So they move across the border, of course. They don't know a political boundary, and then even into Congo. And then we have 3 other species of gorilla. We get the cross river gorilla, which is in a small section between Cameroon and Nigeria. And we get the eastern lowland gorilla in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. And then we get your western lowland gorilla, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Congo, Guinea, and Equatorial Guinea. So you can see from some of those places I named, Uganda is definitely the better place to go and do gorilla tracking. Much more safe. I mean, Rwanda is also very safe and very, very good. So those are the 2 places, and we target the mountain gorilla. There you can see, I mean, this is the kind of scenes you can see. This is a female with a youngster. I mean, this was taken, of course, it's taken it's not taken with a phone, but I mean, this photo, this gorilla was not even 10 meters away from me. You get to spend a good hour or so watching these incredible primates just go about their activities. And it's, it's the ecotourism, us doing the gorilla tracking, going out to see these animals that are saving them and keeping them safe. The mountain gorilla at one stage was close to being extinct. Through the gorilla tracking and the ecotourism that takes place, these gorillas are protected. Rangers jobs are created. Rangers can take people tracking, can protect them. They've got the gorilla doctors that do all the healthcare and the work with them. So there's really, that money we pay to go and gorilla track really ensures that these guys survive, and it's ecotourism working at its best. Just a short video. Sorry, the quality is not very good. I filmed this on the iPhone on a previous trip, and converting it from that to the computer is not the best, but you can see how the silverback comes out and how close, and how close this gorilla really is to us. Let's see, here we go. And there you can see how close we really get to these animals. So sorry about that, video quality is not that great. But sometimes it's better just to watch them and actually worry too much about videos and stuff. But I took these photos of previous clients. You can just see, not many people can have a photo like it with a big silverback gorilla just in the background. And the famous gorilla celebrations. It's amazing. I mean, we spent good amount tracking these animals. So, walking through these forests, especially, you can see it's wet underfoot. It's not easy, but after you spent an hour with gorillas like that, it really, it's high fives, and the emotions is quite something. It's difficult to explain, Really coming across these majestic gorillas. I mean, he's silverback. That silverback can weigh anything, weighs over 200 kilograms. And seeing him like that come through and onto the trail with babies, yeah, it's really, it's breathtaking stuff. And it's something, it's one of those bucket list items. And if there's something you want to do and you're a bird, Uganda and gorillas is definitely, it's right up there. I mean, I've been gorilla tracking a number of times, and every time it's a surreal and it's a special experience. It's really amazing what you do once you've been on tracking with them. The gorilla guardians will tell you a little bit about the group you've tracked and about the story, etc. And then you actually get like a graduation where you sit down and the trackers thank you for coming. You get a certificate that says which group you tracked, etc. So it's a full-on nice experience to do. Sorry, I've jumped again now. You can just, back to that. So, I mean, after tracking the gorillas, depending how long our track has been and what we're doing, we do spend some time exploring the area and doing some birding in the Ruja sector of Burundi National Park. And we do also go down to the Ambawindi Swamp, which has got some really, really good birds. Things like African green, broadbill, Elliott's woodpecker, black-billed turaka, African piculet, Shelley's greenbill, regal sunbird. These are some of the target birds and the birds that we get in that area. And I mean, I remember when we did this gorilla tracking, soon after tracking, walking back, we had great blue turaka sitting in the open. So it's just the Burundi's birding, its primates, gorillas, it's just, so really makes Uganda what you really makes Uganda trip and makes Uganda what is Uganda. So we're unfortunately now starting to come to the end of the trip. So after the gorilla tracking, we spend another night in our lovely lodge in Burundi. And then we head out of the Rwenzori Mountains and we head down towards Lake Mburo. Lake Mburo, I was telling you in the beginning of this presentation, is completely different to anything else we have in Uganda. It's a typical acacia open savanna that we know more from Kenya, Tanzania, and it just touches into the southern tip of Uganda, and you start to get those acacia-associated species that occur in the park. I mean, here you can see, okay, this is not a definite acacia-associated species. This is your African finfoot, high up in the birders list to Africa. And the boat trip we do at Lake Mburo, I've never missed a bird here. You really get some great photographic opportunities. And it's just an absolute stunning bird. They don't always pose like this, but we do get them here. Some of the birds that make Lake Mburo famous are your red-faced barbet, Tabura cesticula. These are all species that just touch into Uganda, and more species we get on our trips to Kenya and Tanzania. Just another mammal you can see on this boat trip. It's a small little boat, and we're able to get really close to the animals. And then in the morning, we just had these hippos so relaxed with us, and we could get some really nice photos of these hippos. It's a juvenile bateleur, not that typical red on the face and the red legs, just this is a young bird, still these juvenile plumage. And then, redneck spurfowl, another savanna or your open grassland species. I mean, your spurfowl, there's a couple of different spurfowl that you could target on trips throughout the African continent, and this redneck spurfowl is quite common in Lake Mburo. Giant kingfisher, this is a male bird. You can see that brown on the chest like that, wearing his waistcoat. Also a real target, especially for one of my previous trips with Norman and Jackie. Norman had really wanted to see a giant kingfisher, and we just could not come across one on our previous boat trips. And we were trying on our last morning in Lake Mburo, about 10 minutes to go before we had to get off the boat and start heading back towards Entebbe. And we managed, this individual literally flew in next to the boat and sat like this and posed so beautifully for us. The female bird has got brown underneath. She's wearing her skirt. That's how we sex these birds. It's the biggest kingfisher in Africa and one of the biggest kingfishers in the world. Of course, the kookaburra in Australia being the biggest. And watching these birds fish, I mean, they can catch quite decent sized fishing. Often they seem to be a better fisherman than what I am. Zebra, Some of the mammals we see in Lake Mburu. That's a zebra on the open plains. Ah, there we go, a topi or a tessaby, seen on the open plains as well. And I mean, our time in Lake Mburu is we spend the afternoon, late evening, just spending time on the open savanna, trying to target some of the special birds in the area. And it's just a really nice way to unwind and enjoy our final full day of the tour before we enjoy a wonderful meal at our lodge looking over the lake. Often get the night owls calling, things like spotted eagle owl, African wood owls are quite common in the area. And then, yeah, we have to make our way from Lake Mburu where the tour ends. Our 14 days of Uganda come to an end. And either we fly out late that evening or spend one more night in Entebbe before flying out in the morning. So thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join me on this virtual birding tour of the Pearl of Africa, Uganda. As you can see, I mean, this is a different way of presenting or doing a birding tour, new for me. So thanks for joining me and seeing what we do. And please, yeah, I'm going to be doing a couple more of these tours, you know, with us being down on lockdown and not being able to guide. It's difficult. We're not out there not doing our passion and our guiding. So if anyone would like to make some form of donation towards me for enjoying this, please get in contact. I'll put my PayPal up, or if you're in South Africa, just contact me. But yeah, please join us on Facebook, Nature Travel Birding. Check our website out, naturetravelbirding.com. We try and see some of the destinations we go to. We do birding trips all across the world, not just in Africa. I'm going to be setting up a couple of other virtual tours, some of our other tours, Costa Rica, Northern India, South Africa, my hometown, Namibia, Botswana. So yeah, let me know in the comments or let me know your thoughts if you've enjoyed this, and till we meet again. Thank you, everybody.